Hello everyone, and welcome to this week's Paint With Me Live. My name is Brittany Lewis, and Sundays is the day that I work on my dream project, the Cosmic Gateways Tarot. And this week, of course, is no exception to that. We're going to be working on the Four of Wands from this project. So we're making our way towards the finish line on this thing. We have quite a bit done. We're going to continue to work our way through it. Hey, TN Lady says hello. If you're here in the chat, whether you're watching this live or the replay, I really appreciate you guys for being here. Now, before we get into our actual live stream, if there is any way, shape, or form that you would like to support me, one of the easiest ways to do that is to hit the like button. That helps push the video out to other people who may like it. It lets YouTube know that you like it, and it helps this channel grow, because I do have a goal of reaching 1,000 subscribers. So far we're at 800, so I'm really excited about that. We have about 800 subscribers. So this week we're going to focus on breaking down the Cosmic Gateways Tarot for some of the new subscribers here in a way I don't think we've done in a while. Now, of course, I talk about this every week because that is the reason that we're here on Sundays, is to work on the Cosmic Gateways Tarot. But we'll go into a little more in-depth explanation of the cards, my why for creating the project, all of the things, and then we'll continue, of course, to work on the actual image itself. Another way that you guys can support me, of course, is to hit the subscribe button. But also, if you have a project or an idea that you think I would be a great fit for, you would like to work with me, there are going to be some links in the description for how you can do that, as well as some links to merchandise, including journals and posters and canvas prints, and all the things will be there as well. Everything ships out about next day for the most part, except for the canvas prints and t-shirts. T-shirts take about a day or two to get made for you, and canvas prints take about a week or two to do, because we're actually building those for you to order. So as soon as you order a canvas print, they go into production, and then we send it out just for you, so that you have something very fresh, something new, that's not just kind of sitting around in my house or in my stores. You have a brand new canvas print to put on your wall. So everything will be down in the description if you're curious about that, or if you would like to order something to support me in that way, that'll be there. So I hope you guys are having a great week this week. I've had a really great and productive week. I've had gotten quite a lot done, including some of the work on this card. So if you like a chill live stream Wednesdays, I usually live stream for Bring Your Own Project Live, and in that one we just kind of co-work and study together. So in that particular stream, there were a couple of things I did. I did some tweaks on our groom's, specifically his feet, and just kind of cleaned up the flats for his shoes, and now I kind of finished that up today. But I also worked on the canopy some more. Now, every time I streamed, I think for about 2 hours. So I was able to get a little bit done in 2 hours, or what it looks like a little bit. It took 2 hours to do it. So we're going to continue chugging along on this coming Wednesday, which I think is on the 17th. So if you like a chill live stream, I will be there for that. And we'll continue to work on this canopy. The reason I don't do that on Sundays is just because it can be, in my opinion, a little bit tedious. It is something I need like my full concentration on, and anytime I'm working on it, I'm usually in like the flow state. So I'll get into a groove, and next thing you know, we've streamed for 2 hours. So I'll save that for Wednesdays. But today we're going to pick back up with our characters. I'm going to do his shoes. I started on his feet, just kind of adding a little indication of light based on my 3D model, and then we will just pick up from there, right? So again, I hope you guys had a great week. Something else I accomplished this week. So I think last Sunday I talked a little bit about the first book that I published in 2021 and needing, or sort of setting up a second edition to that. And I really only had to write maybe a couple additional aspects to the latter part of it, just something new that I'm adding to the second edition, and then it needed to be edited and reformatted. So I finished all of that this week. So I'm real proud and excited about that, because that was a goal that I actually set up for the beginning of the year. I think sometimes we, because we're at the end of the year, sort of at the last month of the year, I was like, oh man, I didn't get it done. But I just sat down and finished it. I did. And I, again, went into the flow state. So I spent an entire day, I finished writing everything the day before. Spent the next day reformatting and making sure that it was the way that I wanted it to be. Now, the only thing that I have left to do for that particular project is, of course, to print. But I'm thinking about changing the cover of it. So I'll show you guys what the original looks like. So the original version of that book was actually formatted to be like a workbook. So it was printed at 11 or 8.5 by 11, so like the standard size sheet of paper. So this is what it looks like. All of these are sold out, so I only have like a couple of, like, of course, artist and author copies left, just to keep on my bookshelf to say that I did it, right? But this version will no longer be available. So currently it is marked as out of stock. Even the ebook of it is marked as out of stock. So the way that I wanted to approach the second edition was, of course, to add a guided journal portion to it. So right now it's very much a workbook, right? So it's very short. I think it's like 64 pages. I wrote it to like a 7th grade reading level so that the information will be very digestible, very easy to read, all of that. So the bulk of the new edition is exactly the same, right? So I have all of the same information in it, but instead of kind of leaving you on your own to do, and this book, by the way, is about shadow work. So instead of leaving the reader on their own to sort of sort through it based on the instructions in the book, the new version of this will have an actual sort of like guided journal in the back. It'll also be smaller so that I can afford to print it, right, with more pages. So when we do books and things like that, the cost of production will oftentimes be reflected by the size of your book, and of course the number of pages, the binding, so however you bind your book, the finishes. Like this is a soft touch cover because I wanted it to feel real nice and soft and all of that. So all of that affects the price to print it, right? So the idea of running a business is that you want to make a profit, right? So you want to kind of keep your overhead as low as possible, but also sort of add a, some quality to it. So I reformatted this book. It is going to be about a 5.5 by 8.5, so literally half the size. It ended up being 292 pages. So of course you have the main part of it, which is the information in the first edition, and then everything behind it will be the guided journal portion. And so it is a couple of sections. I think I did about 10 sections of the guided journal bit, and then there's some information at the end. So I'm really, really happy and proud about that. But I am considering redesigning the cover. So this cover has like the shadows, and then it has some other photo manipulation stuff in it. I like the way that the font of the book looks. I like that portion of it, the graphic design of it. So I'm not really sure if I'm going to keep that, but I'm thinking about going and doing an illustrated cover. So we'll see. I have some thumbnails ready for it. So we might tackle that on a Wednesday stream just to kind of see where I would like to go with it. I do, again, have some ideas, so we'll see. We'll explore that together. But that is the last thing that I have to do. It's already formatted. It's already ready to print. So when we get to that point, I will print out a few copies, do another round of editing, right, just to make sure I didn't miss anything, which is what happened when I printed those the first time. I had ordered like a whole batch of them. I was so confident, right? I had in my mind, not in my mind, I actually thought I had gone through, but as I am formatting things, I'm also editing things, because as an author and a graphic designer, I'm able to do that all at one time. So I was editing things, and then I ordered maybe like 25 copies of it. And I looked through it, just reading through it to make sure that it was printed to the quality that I wanted it to. And it had huge missing bits of information in it. So I had to go through it, actually edit what I had printed out, and then fix everything in the file, reformat it, get it ready to go, and then reprint it again. So I learned quite a bit in that first print run, because that was the first book that I had actually published on my own, first self-published book back in 2021. So I definitely bumped my head. I was reading it. I was so disappointed, because I had so many copies, and I still have them. I just have not worked up the nerve to throw them away yet. But I do have them, and that was a mistake that I made. So moving forward, what I'll probably do is order one copy of it fully printed and formatted and all of that. Make sure I read through it again in printed form, and make sure I didn't miss anything in editing or anything like that, and then we'll release them again as a second edition. So I'm super happy about that, really excited for the way that came together. And again, I think it just was a matter of me actually sitting down and making time to do it. So I did that this week. Very, very excited about that. So again, we've got some new people here because we're growing, baby. I'm getting this deck out to more people, so I'm really excited about that. So I want to talk a little bit about why I chose to do the Cosmic Gateways Tarot. What are the Cosmic Gateways? Why the title? You know, how long it's taking me to do? When is it going to be done? Right? So all of the questions that I tend to have when it comes to this particular project. So to start, I decided to do a tarot deck many years ago. I would say maybe around 2015, 2016 or so. I wanted to do one, and I was not able to find something that I liked, right, that I could relate to. I picked up my first tarot deck at 16 around 2002, and I remember it was a Rider-Waite-Smith deck, and I could not connect to that deck, right? So I couldn't see myself in it. It was very difficult for me at that age to read. And back then, even though we had access to the internet and all of that, there wasn't as much information available for learning to read tarot outside of certain spreads. So in that case, whenever I would look it up, it was always the Celtic Cross, and that's all the information you would find. So like there wasn't websites with databases of meanings. There were not YouTube didn't exist then, so there were not videos or anything like that available to learn it from. And I didn't personally know anyone who was reading tarot. It was just something that I was drawn to. So I went over to Spencer's at the time, bought me a little pocket-sized deck that I thought I was gonna have, and all of that. I remember flipping through the cards, and I was like, I don't know what I'm looking at. Right? I have no idea what I'm looking at. I did not like the way that the pictures were drawn, because that was also the year that I decided that I was going to be an artist. 16 years old, 2002. So I was like, yeah, this is going to be the year that I'm going to be an artist. So because I had been drawing my entire life, whatever stage I was in that at 16, right? Still had a certain eye for things that I like, things that appealed to me. I always was fascinated by like the old 1930s Looney Tunes cartoons and the painted backgrounds and all of that. So I had a certain eye for art even at that particular age. And I just could not connect to Pamela Coleman Smith's illustrations at the age of 16. So that started sort of the journey of me in tarot, 16. So fast forward some years later, and I'm sort of getting into it again. I'm feeling that call, that tug again to try to get into learning how to read tarot again, and just trying to find a deck. I knew already that I had a very bad, or not very bad, just a very unpleasant experience with the cards, because I didn't know what I was looking at, didn't like the illustrations, all of that. So I was very intentional about finding a deck, right? Trying to find a deck that I could see myself in, that I can sort of feel connected to, that I just enjoyed the artwork for, right? Because I feel like as a spiritual tool, you kind of have to, especially with tarot, because it is so image heavy and image reliant, I think it's very important to be able to see or connect to the imagery, whether or not you see yourself or not. You kind of have to like what you're looking at. Right? Otherwise, in my mind at the time, it would make it very difficult to read, because that was my experience at 16. I just was not interested in it because I couldn't see myself. I just did not enjoy the artwork. So I became very intentional about it. I was like, you know what? I need to find something that I kind of like looking at, right? And would not mind, using on a daily basis as I, start to draw and all that. So it took me a while to find something that I actually like and could connect to. It took me a really long time. But what I was finding is that even the images that I felt like spoke to my specific culture all felt very trauma heavy, right? Even if that wasn't necessarily the aim of the deck, that's just kind of how, or the feeling that I was picking up from those decks. So I'm like, okay, I ain't finding nothing I like. I'm still looking. It took me a while. Took me a really long time to find something that I connected to. But even then, the first decks that I bought, and I don't even think it was right as I was getting the inclination to get back into tarot. I think it was quite a bit of time later. Even those decks that I was purchasing, they were all very ambiguous in terms of the way that the people were drawn, whether they were lines, right? Or just, stick figure types of characters, or if they were like the Crow Tarot was one of the decks that I picked up early on. And that was, of course, some years later. And a few others, right? They were very unique in the way that they were presented, but they spoke to me in a certain level, but they still were not exactly what I was looking for. So I was like, I think I kind of want to make one of these, right? I kind of want to make a tarot deck. And so I talked about it for a long time. At the same time, I was very heavy again into comic book conventions. So I was very busy as an artist and as a graphic designer. And of course, those two for me worked out very separately because I would do a lot of portraits, a lot of non-commercial commissions. And then I would also do, of course, the graphic design part of that, where I would do a lot of commercial projects for businesses and things like that. So I was pretty busy, right? I was doing very well as an artist. And I was also sort of finding my way within that. So finding my way within the space of being an entrepreneur, being a creative professionally as a freelancer and all of that, trying to navigate that whole space. But in the back of my mind, I was not necessarily satisfied with the art that I was creating to, the best of like my abilities, right? I wasn't completely satisfied. I had gotten to a point where, of course, I was making art that I liked, right? Especially when it came to like the comics and things like that. I kind of found my footing within that space. For me, it was a lot of nostalgia based illustrations. All of that, that's kind of how I made peace with it, because ultimately I was drawing or recreating other people's creations. And as someone who's super serious about what I do, right, that kind of weighs on your mind a little bit, right? Because it feels like I'm not necessarily creating from my own experiences other than the nostalgia. So I was growing very, very uncomfortable and very unhappy and unsatisfied with the work that I was creating. I was doing it. I was making pretty good money with it. I, again, was trying to find things that I actually like to do to recreate for these comic book conventions, because that was the primary way that I was meeting people and selling my art and getting it out to people, drawing a following in on social media, all of that. It was all centered around fan art. So I was like, I'm going to have to do something. For whatever reason, it did not dawn on me that, of course, I wanted to create the tarot deck. I was just like, I don't know what to do. I would make art such as like, I think I did a siren. I did some, the Coven series that I did, which at some point will be a coloring book and a calendar. So just have to finish those things. Another project that's a work in progress. So I would put out individual little things here and there, sprinkles out things that I was personally interested in that I was not necessarily seeing other creators create. I would make it, throw it out there, and then I'd go back to either the portrait commissions or I would do fan art, right? But it just it didn't dawn on me to go ahead and begin on the tarot deck project until I think maybe probably at the start of 2019. And even then it was like, well, before I start, let me make sure I have all of my ducks in a row, because I'm just sort of talking my way out of procrastinating and not necessarily knowing what's on the other side of it, all of that. But it really kind of came from not having the deck that I felt like I wanted to work with and would like fall in love with. Now, of course, I've amassed a collection of decks. Most of them are indie. And I like indie decks because, again, we're getting sort of that real artistic expression. Whereas with mass markets deck, they're appealing to the masses. So a lot of them feel very watered down, very generic in a way. I think we were in Barnes and Noble maybe a month or so ago. We was looking at the decks and it just felt very commercial, right? So a lot of the decks that I own personally are indie decks. They're created by individual artists or authors, and they sort of have that very intentional, very artistic, very unique flair about them. So that was what I was drawn to, and that's what I wanted to create. I wanted to create something that I would have used or would have loved when I was 16 picking up my first deck. So thus began the process of creating the Cosmic Gateways Tarot. That was the why. I just wasn't seeing what I wanted. Wasn't seeing what I would connect to on the market. I still don't. From time to time, I have not come across anything quite like it, which is a good thing for me, right? Because it's taking so long to do. I don't necessarily want to find something quite like what I am creating, so that's very nice to have. I have seen a uptick in more creative Afrofuturistic types of decks, but there's still like a huge void in the market that speaks to different perspectives and different dynamics and cultures and all of that. There's just a huge void in that particular space. Most of it is very Eurocentric, is very sort of bland. And again, when we go to some of those mass market decks, a lot of them just feel very commercial. But I've again found some really nice indie decks. So 2019 rolled around. I was like, okay, I think 2018 I had like a whole artistic existential crisis, because I was like, look, man, it it ain't coming together the way that I would wish it were coming together. I'm not really creating the types of art that I really just want to push out there. And all of that was just me being afraid to do it, because really all I had to do was just do it, right? Just do it and put it out there. So 2019 came around, and then it was like, okay, I'm gonna do this, but right, but I need to have all my ducks in a row, but I need to have some way to support the project, some way to fund the project, because even though I didn't have a clue at the time of what all was involved in creating a tarot deck, I still knew that it was a pricey project, right? Just I was like, we got the cost, right? And if I focus on this particular project as opposed to focusing on my client work, I may not be able to, afford certain things, because I won't be getting paid from this particular project as of yet, right? So that was my thinking. So I went into 2019. I was like, okay, I think at the time I was in Biddy Tarot's reading community, so I was super duper active as a reader at that time. So I was getting plenty of practice, plenty of study in, so I can understand the medium even more than I already had. Again, I had read at that time, because I was in her community, I read literally for people all over the world, which was a lot of fun. It helped me learn how to meditate and to sort of tune into myself and to let go of things and not to sort of take in other people's problems as my own. So I experienced all of that during that time, but I was also, again, talking myself out of just starting the project, because I was thinking I gotta have all of these things in place before I jump out there and get it done, and none of it worked out. right, that's kind of how it went. It was like the universe was like, hey man, you want to start, just start. And I'm like, no, I want to start, but I'm scared to start. I got all of these other things I should have together and perfect and all of this. And it's like, no, just start, right? You just have to trust the process and trust that things are clicking into place. And I'm like, no. Right? Just be talking to myself, to the universe, or whomever. I was like, nah, man, I can't do that, because, how are these, I'm worried about how things are going to fall into place once I give all of my attention to this dream project. So fast forward to October or so, because I found the original card that I worked on, and it was dated to October. I was thinking November, because that was when I had shared the first card, but I found the original file for the first card that I did, and that was from October of 2019. So October 2019 comes around. I was like, okay, I'm gonna start. Right? I pull out my favorite deck at the time, which was Golden Threads. I was like, all right, Golden Threads, which card should I start with? Pulled the Chariot. So I was like, okay, cool, we'll start with the Chariot. So I started with the Chariot, and immediately it wasn't quite coming together the way that I had envisioned it coming together. In my mind, I wanted to do something like a double exposure sort of look, which means like I had the character, and within her cloak I wanted to have the horses moving around. At that time, I think I had only drawn horses maybe once, right? And it was many years prior to that. So it just was not coming together for me. It just wasn't sort of clicking into place. And I'm like, look, man, this is the first card. I can't be having these problems in the first card. But I kept going. I was like, okay, so maybe I can just change this from the Chariot to the High Priestess. I can add some other elements to it to speak to the energy of the High Priestess. And then from there, we just been rolling, right? So High Priestess, the Chariot became the High Priestess. That was the first card that I completed. I think I shared it November 2019. And then we moved forward November. I feel like in November I shared both the Chariot and the Justice. Then I think we had some stuff at home happen where my son got extremely sick, and then my husband had some stuff going on illness wise, and so I had to focus on that. But we picked back up in January, and then 2020 thing shut down, which gave me a lot of time to sort of work on it and share and do all of those things. And because people were at home, I was getting quite a bit of great interactions with you guys. So I did a lot of building 2020, sharing the cards and all of that. Now, at the beginning of the project, I didn't have a name, right? I didn't have a name. I didn't have a theme or anything like that. I just had a sort of a feeling that I wanted to channel. I knew I wanted it to be very forward thinking, right? Meaning that anytime I would find a deck where someone looked like me in that particular deck, it would be one of a couple of things. Either Black people were used as a marketing tool, so maybe it'll be 50 something cards and there are only like 2 or 3 Black folks in it, but they show the Black people, and then even in that, just the situations didn't fit what I was going for, right? Or I would find decks that were again very trauma heavy, very heavy energetically, and it wasn't necessarily a good heavy, right? It would feel like a woe is me. It would feel very much like a struggle sort of deck, and I was finding that a lot, right? I was finding that so much. So I knew that going into the project, I wanted it to be something that featured the future. And that was not to say that I should ignore the pain of our ancestral trauma or anything like that. It's just that I didn't want that to be the overall theme of this particular project. I didn't want you to pick this up and feel like, and maybe it's just me because I tend to be sensitive to certain things in that regard, where I can kind of feel it and read certain information in images. It's just something I've always been able to do. But I did not want someone who may have that same inclination to pick up my deck and feel as heavy, right? Especially the way that things are in the world as things are sort of playing out now. The things that we've witnessed in our lives and our grandparents and all of that I just did not want to focus on in this particular project. I do feel like there is a space for that. I do feel like that should be a thing that people should be aware of. I just didn't want that to be the theme of this particular project. So I knew that I wanted to focus on the Afrofuturistic aspect of this. So beginning the project, all of the characters that I would work on, all the cards that I would work on were major arcanas. And I knew that I wanted to have the some sort of sci-fi element in it and some sort of nod to alchemy in it, because that is one of the things that we find in tarot. We find a lot of alchemy, we find numerology, we find astrology, all of these things, right? So for each of the major arcana cards, there would be a glowing triangle, whether that was upright, upside down with the lines and all of that. All of these would be the alchemical symbols of the elements. So for whichever element the different major arcanas would fit with, that's sort of the element that I would put somewhere in the middle, either on their heads, their hats, somewhere in the middle of the image, you would find that element. And then as we move forward, each of the cards became, in my opinion, much more magical, right? But one thing that I would say that's super important to note is that in these cards, after a while, I started to realize that this is just a big old self-portrait, right? And it's just what it is. So when you have art, however you're consuming it, you're usually finding out or seeing some reflection of that artist, whether that's intentional or unintentional. Once I started to sort of figure out that as I'm developing these cards, I started to ask myself, what would this situation look like? Have I ever been in a situation that reflects the meaning of these cards? It became very intentional for me to make it a self-portrait. Right? As best I could. That way, as I'm creating the art, I'm not necessarily creating it from a space of not knowing, from a space of just creating it for the sake of creating it. I'm actually creating it based on people that I've experienced, situations that I've experienced, aspects of my life, aspects of my own troubles, aspects of my own victories, aspects of my fears, aspects of parts of myself that I'm super confident about, and putting that into these cards. Now, with them, also you may find deities. There are lots and lots of calls to different deities across the world, not just in the African diaspora, but just different ones that I would feel drawn to and would want to reflect in those particular illustrations and images. So if you would like to, and it's going to autosave, so this is a perfect time. If you would like to sort of play what's the deity, if you go over to my Instagram channel, my Instagram page, which I will show here just a little bit of. If you go over to my Instagram page, this is probably the best place to see a whole lot of the cards, right? Not all of them, especially in the later ones that I've created. I have not been posting as frequently there, but I have, of course, been here every week, twice a week. But if you would just kind of like to see some of the cards that I've done over the years, the majority of them, I would say, and kind of play spot the deity, right? You could do that by visiting my Instagram channel. Now, of course, I have two. One is the B. Lewis Arts, and the other is Blue Lotus Tarot, which is where I do tarot readings and things like that. But that is the place to find it. So you'll find different mythological creatures, you'll find different deities, you'll find different representations of the African diaspora just throughout this deck, right? That has always been sort of my goal for the project. I wanted to showcase, of course, the Afrofuturistic aspects of it. I wanted to give a nod to sci-fi and fantasy, and I just wanted to create a positive representation of different experiences outside of the what was me, right? In my mind, I think that if you can see yourself in some reflection of greatness, right? If you can kind of see yourself in an elevated space in a different circumstance, it'll be easy to create that within your own reality, right? That's just my thinking. Not to get super woo-woo or anything like that. But I think back to when I was 16 and I decided that I wanted to be an artist. But prior to that, I didn't even know that was a thing that I could do, right? I had no idea that that was something that was available to me. I thought that, we were taught, or I was taught at the time, that success came from being a doctor, a lawyer. You may be all right as a teacher, right? Or you could go into the military. Those are my 4 options. So for the longest time, I wanted to be an attorney, right? It was my goal to be specifically a corporate attorney. Now, as I have grown as an adult, I know me real well. I don't think that would have been a great space for me. I don't think that would be an avenue that I would be happy in. And I remember at that time, I used to read a lot of John Grisham books. And I remember reading one, I don't recall the name of it, but in it, one of the main characters was a corporate attorney. Does a really, really great job of showcasing like the reality of certain professions, specifically in law. And I just was like, I do not want to do that. Right. So at 16, I had met with my first black art teacher was at 16, 11th grade. First black art teacher, Miss Owens, saw something in the way that I drew, and she nurtured me in that. And she sort of made me aware of the fact that I could actually be an artist. And I knew that there were black artists and things like that. I just did not feel like I could do it, even though I had been drawing my entire life. My first memories of me drawing was at like 3. So I've been doing it a long time. It was just something I did. I didn't think anything about. I didn't feel special in it in any way, shape, or form. As a matter of fact, I thought everybody did it. I thought it was something that I thought everybody pull out notebooks and draw whatever, right? It just was an everyday thing. It wasn't something that I thought too much about, but she saw something in me, right? Whatever that was, and she nurtured it in me. And so when we would have projects in class, she would move the class along in the projects. But if it was something I was working on, for instance, my very first painting, she allowed me like extra 2 weeks just to finish this painting. And she was showing me how to sort of, blend colors and do things like that. And I was working with watercolor, but I used watercolor so thickly that it looked like gouache. And at the time, she had us studying other artists, and I found I forget the name of the artist, but I found an image online that I liked, printed it out, and I decided to replicate that in my own way, right? Trying to sort of get it as close to a reproduction as I could as a 16-year-old at that time, with no real like formal training. I had art classes and things like that, but it wasn't nothing to the extent that I was getting at that time from Miss Owens. So Miss Owens had me working, right? And the school that I went to was one that we didn't have a whole lot of funding, so there was no like Art 2, AP art history, or nothing like that in my school. We had Art 1, and that was it. Right, so I took Art 1 twice just so that I could continue to be nurtured by her to learn and to grow as an artist in this space. So fast forward, we're still at it, and so this is the Cosmic Gateways Tarot. Now, from here, again, that was sort of how I was able to sort of see representation of an artist and know that I can do that too. So that was sort of the idea that I went with when creating these cards. I wanted to make it feel as magical, and of course, speaking to my own personal spiritual experiences, I wanted to sort of create images that people could identify with, see themselves in, and then hopefully inspire people to sort of reach for these ideas of greatness. Now, they're just illustrations, of course, and these are tarot cards that people will use however which way they feel they can or should, or whatever the case is. But that was sort of the idea I moved into this with, right? I don't necessarily want to focus on the woe is me. I don't necessarily want to focus on like the collective trauma of my ancestors. I ain't even go beyond my own family. I didn't want to do that. I did not want to sort of lean into that particular aspect. I wanted it to feel not necessarily light, but I don't want it to feel negative, if that makes sense. I just did not want it to feel negative. Now, of course, when we move into cards such as the 8, 9, and 10 of swords, those specifically, the 5 of cups, the 8 of cups, there are a few, the 3 of swords and things like that. Of course, there are aspects of this deck or of tarot in general that will speak to negative experiences. This just is what it is. I just didn't want that to be the overarching theme of this card, of these cards of this deck, right? So a lot of it, right, kind of came together as I was progressing through the project. I didn't, again, have any plans at first for a name. I didn't have any plans at first for the theme. I just knew the feeling that, of course, I wanted to go for. The name Cosmic Gateways Tarot came with the second card, which was Justice. Justice is the deity Ma'at, who is standing in front of a gateway. At the time that I had made Justice, right, I was going through my own sort of spiritual evolution. And what I came to realize is that even when you go through certain sort of stages of life, things don't stop, right? You don't just get to a point where you're healed or whatever the case is, and then you just move forward and all things are good. You don't go through any other challenges. I was finding that each sort of aspect of my life, whether that was career, whether that was relationship, whether that was just life in general, would lead me to the next aspect of my life. And once I had gotten through that one, it would lead me to the next, and so on and so forth. And it came to me, I was like, you know what? It's like every stage that we go through is sort of like a gateway. I had also created Ma'at in front of a gateway. So I was just like, okay, I'm gonna call this Cosmic Gateway. It came to my mind, right? It was like, you should call this the Cosmic Gateway Tarot. It's been the Cosmic Gateway Tarot ever since. Now, I remember having a conversation with another artist who was like, are you sure you should, do you think you should share the name and all of that? In my mind, I was like, yes, because if people are used to seeing the Cosmic Gateways Tarot, it would be very difficult for someone to come in and claim that they've used the name prior to, if I have 6 years of records, right, of me using that particular name. So Cosmic Gateways Tarot, it has been, and again, the gateways just sort of represent each phase, each season of life that we sort of go through, each lesson, each sort of stepping stone, all of those things. That is what those gateways represent. And the cosmic aspect of it deals a lot with just the ethers, the universe, all of that. So in the major arcana cards, the majority of them are in front of some sort of gateway, right? Whether that is a literal sort of archway, whether that is a literal doorway or anything like that. And that is to say that as the Fool is sort of making their way through the journey, again, they're going through each sort of phase and stage and season, and they are moving through these gateways. So that's how it came up with the name. It came with the second deck, and I was already like sort of going through something and having my own personal realizations and my own personal understandings and things like that. And that's what it came up. That's what I came up with. So the Cosmic Gateways Tarot, it is. So before I get even further into this deck, what I've done so far, I just added a little bit of a light tone to our groom's shoes. I'll come back to this a little bit later because I don't know yet how detailed I want them to be. They may not even need to be detailed because there's so much going on in this particular illustration. But what I am looking for is my actual bride's dress. And I just found it. So I have it on a couple of different layers because my initial idea was to have her skirt be see-through. I'm not really sure if that's something I want to continue to do. If I were to turn off her skirt, her legs are completely rendered. So I did set myself up to have this be see-through. I just don't know yet how or what color I want sort of her underwear part to be. So I don't know yet if I'm going to make the see-through or not. But in the meantime, in between time, we'll go ahead and put together her dress using this particular reference. Again, I didn't copy this reference exact. I just kind of looked at the way that the dress bunched around her knees, and then I just kind of added that to my sketch to however it would fit my particular model. So we're gonna go there for a little bit and then we'll get back into it. So Cosmic Gateways Tarot, again, that is where the name came from. I was just sort of going through my own thing, and it just kind of came to me. I was like, because I was thinking at the time, that's when I really started to get into shadow work. It was at the time that I was working on the Justice card, right? And I had gone through and I had and I had been doing shadow work prior to that. I just did not know that that was the name for it, and I did not have the instructions for how to navigate that space until around that time. So I'm thinking late 2019, right? Again, I had already gone through a whole art existential crisis and not feeling fulfilled with the artwork that I was going through. Was already feeling the fear of starting until I got started, and then Justice came around, and again I was dealing with other stuff. Right at the time I had locks, so I had locks all the way down. They were like butt length locks. I had been growing for like 11 years, and I kept dreaming about cutting my locks off because I kept thinking hair holds energy, and I was like, it's time for me to start letting some things go. I had locks through a lot of life, right? So I was like, we gotta get rid of these locks, because that's gonna help me sort of lighten my own load, even if only symbolically. And so again, I was going through things, dealing with that, but I just came to the realization that after I've dealt with that, right, there are still other aspects of life. There's still something on the other side of this for me to learn and grow from. Again, those gateways, and then also matching it to the Fool's Journey. So this deck is going to be about 78, it's going to be 78 cards, right? It will come with a little white book, and by little white book I mean a guidebook. So I have a couple examples here. So this is typically what a guidebook looks like that comes with a tarot deck. So this one is from Animal Spirit Tarot Oracle, and then this one is from Crow Tarot. And so these are considered little white books, right? So the Cosmic Gateways Tarot will come with its own version of a little white book. Inside every little white book is just basic interpretations of the cards. So they look something like this. I don't know. There it is. So it looks something like this. It'll list the card. It'll list the meaning. Some of them will have reversed meanings and some of them will not. The one for the Cosmic Gateways Tarot will have reverse meanings because I read reversals, right? I do understand that some people don't, but I read reversals. Even the Animal Spirit Oracle, this one has meanings for when they are reversed, and they just the author calls them protection messages, which I think is a good way to frame a reversal. But I will have reverse meanings in it as well. One of the other things that it will come with, or not come with, but will be available to go with the Cosmic Gateways Tarot, will be a companion book that'll be a little bit bigger. It'll be the size of the What the Bleep. So for instance, it'll be the What the Bleep Are Shadows book, which I showed earlier. This is my original book that I put out 2021. This one is going to be reduced to about this size, right? So this is about I think this is 6x9, so it'll be slightly smaller than this. It'll be a 5.5 by 8.5. And so it'll be about this size, probably about this thick. But in it, we'll have complete breakdowns of all of the cards. So a lot of the stuff that we just went over in terms of my why, in terms of what the Cosmic Gateways are, my intention for the deck, all of that deep dive stuff will be in the companion book. I have not decided yet if I'm going to put the companion book out at the same time as I do the actual deck itself. I guess it'll just kind of depend on what I have written and prepared and all of that. As of now, I have the first 3 chapters of that written, and a lot of that has to do with sort of the history of tarot, how to read tarot, how to read for yourself, how to read for others, how to cleanse the deck, those kinds of things. I have not yet written sort of the actual sort of breakdowns of the cards. I do typically keep a journal so if I am planning the cards or if I'm studying the cards and things like that, I have information for what those cards mean. I also have these live streams, right, which help me out a whole lot because there are a recorded record of my thinking process as I am creating the cards. Because typically what will happen is as we start a card, I will either show the planning process. Sometimes actually for the last couple sets of cards I have shown the planning process, but as I am creating each individual card, we'll go over the meaning of it, right, or sort of my intention for the meaning and all of that, what different things mean, why I chose to go certain routes. So all of that information will be condensed down and included in that companion book. So I don't know again yet if I'm going to be doing that with the Cosmic Gateways Tarot, or if I'm going to release the deck and then give it some time and then take my time with with the companion book and go forward with that. I do have a title for that book. Now that I'm not quite ready to reveal because I just don't have enough of it out in the world to share, but it will go right along with the Cosmic Gateways Tarot. And again, those will have like some really, really great breakdowns and artist notes and some really deep dives, right? Because as I'm studying these cards, even as someone who has read for them and read for people all over the world, I still sort of find new information about them, right? I still find new symbols and things to pay attention to, new ways of regarding the cards, especially now as I am not as active as a tarot reader as I once was. So I really just be in them cards, go down all kinds of rabbit holes and researching the history of them and why certain symbols were used. Now, I mentioned earlier that my very first deck was the Rider-Waite-Smith at the age of 16. Now, fast forward as a 39-year-old, right? I do have an appreciation for the Rider-Waite-Smith deck. So this particular deck is modeled after it. I am not trying to create a clone deck, meaning that I'm not copying image for image just in my own style from the Rider-Waite-Smith deck. There are going to be some overlaps for certain cards, so there will be some themes that will be quite similar. A great example of that will be the Four of Pentacles. You guys can go back through the live stream to kind of see what that looks like. That's probably one of the ones that came extremely close to the original source material. But overall, I'm not necessarily trying to make a clone deck. However, I did pick the Rider-Waite-Smith deck to model the Cosmic Gateways Tarot out of because it is one of the most written about tarot decks out there. So if we go back to that story when I was 16 and got my first deck, one of the issues that I was having is that nobody was really explaining the cards at all, right? At that time, nobody was explaining them. They were only, again, explaining certain spreads. And I'm saying specifically the Celtic Cross because that was all I was coming across, right? So because I know that it's one of the most popular sort of standard decks, most decks that you will buy out of your Botanicas, out of your spiritual shops, out of Barnes and Noble, out of your little novelty bookshops and all of that, most of them will be modeled after the Rider-Waite-Smith. So my idea again is to make this a very easy reading experience for the new reader, right? This is the deck that I wish I had or wish I had access to at 16. So if this is your first tarot deck, I want to make sure that whatever I have, even though there will be plenty of resource for you through the companion book and as well as the little white book, I want you to be able to read this in tandem with whatever other decks you own or whatever other information that you find on the internet, right? So whether you are an intuitive reader or whether you are someone who reads by the book or somewhere in between, I want to make this as familiar in a way, but just sort of in line with the original source material. So it is modeled after Rider-Waite-Smith. So I do use that as a jumping off point. My goal is always to find a way to express the ideas differently, right? Now, the trouble I'm having with the next set of cards, the trouble that I was having with the next set of cards is finding a way to represent those ideas slightly differently. And that may have just been due to burnout or whatever the case was when I was like actively working on that. So now that I've kind of given it some space, given it some time, I'll be jumping back into that space so that I can go ahead and plan the next 4 cards. But that is something to keep in mind. This is modeled after the Rider-Waite, but not necessarily a clone of the Rider-Waite. So I hope that makes sense. So again, I wanted to do that so that you guys could have a very smooth reading experience. Something again that you can go back to if you like Rider-Waite, right? If you're used to that particular system, even if you're again new to reading tarot and divination and all of that, I want you to be able to look up the meaning of the cards and kind of still see the meanings in the Cosmic Gateways Tarot. So that's always been my goal. I just do not want it to be like a woe is me until we get to those particular cards. I don't want it to feel like, I don't want it to feel like all my life I had to fight, right? You know what I mean? I want it to feel like, man, I had to fight sometimes, but I got up and dusted myself off and kept going. That's kind of what I would like to aim for in this particular project. Because again, a lot of the ones that I was finding that I would have normally sort of gone for just were so heavy in the wrongest kind of way to me, right? Energetically, they were just too much. So I just wanted to make sure that whatever I produced felt like something that I would want to use. Okay. So that's just about the gist of that. Again, 78 cards. Now these cards are going to be, the goal here now is to make them a little bit bigger than the standard card. Your standard card, I forget the size, I think it's 70 by 120 millimeters. So the standard size tarot card looks about something like this. Now this comes from the Cosmic Gateway's Tarot. This is one that I did as a test run, but this is the size. I just wanted to see what the colors look like. So I did a test run, and this helps me sort of see the project as a completed thing, even though it's taken me a long time to complete it. So this is the size of a standard tarot card. I believe it's 70 by 120 millimeters. It might be a little bit bigger or smaller than those dimensions. You guys can Google that if that's something you're interested in, but this is the standard size card. My ideal card size is a little bit bigger. This is also from the Cosmic Gateway's Tarot. Now, this is one that I had a company print for me. There's no back design yet. There's just something I have to work on. I had these printed. It says July 2021. So I've had these for a while, right? This is the size that I would like to go for. This is the Queen of Cups from the same project, the Cosmic Gateway's Tarot. And if I put them together, I'll do it this way. If I put them together, of course, the Cosmic Gateway's Tarot ideal size is going to be a little bit bigger than the standard size card. I did that because I liked it, right? I was playing specifically with Crow Tarot. I was playing with Crow Tarot versus some of the other decks that I have. And it is bigger, right? This is a card from Crow Tarot. It is a bigger card than the standard size card. I just like the size. Now I've shuffled with this lately and I'm like, it is kind of big. But I like it. I like the size of this. I like the card stock that they used. I think this one is probably one of the only mass market decks that I have. But I do believe that the artist, and I forget her name, MJ McLean or McCullen or something like that. I think that she sort of regained control of her stuff. So I think now she publishes mostly indie decks. And so she has some other animal themed decks and things like that. But Crow Tarot is one of my favorite because it is one of the most straightforward, like no nonsense decks that I own. So each deck has its own personality, right? So this one has a very straightforward, like we ain't got time for the BS kind of thing, but I like the size. Now with that, when it comes to printing 78 cards of this size, the trick that I'm going to have to navigate is making sure my card stock isn't super thick. So when we come to doing indie decks, a lot of them do tend to be a little bit thicker because we're trying to create a premium experience. They often have gilding, which means they'll have like a gold sort of edge, or I have one with like a blue edge or like an iridescent edge or so on and so forth. With that, you kind of add to the thickness. The thicker the card, the harder it will be to shuffle in certain respects. So if you riffle shuffle like you playing spades, you shuffle in a deck of cards. If you try that with a thicker deck, it is extremely difficult to do. So for instance, I have one Modern Witch Tarot, which is another, I want to say that one's another mass market deck, but the publisher of that is not like a huge company. So you do have some really great quality cards with it. The issue with it is that they're just too thick, right? So you cannot riffle shuffle them. So you have to kind of overhand shuffle them or like figure out different ways to sort of mix up the cards. So that is something that I will have to navigate as well. When I go to print these, just like the book where I will print out an example copy of it, like an artist copy, I will print out or have the manufacturer send me a physical proof of it. That way I can kind of play with them. I can shuffle them. I can make sure the cards are exactly the way that I want them to be. I can make sure that the colors are exactly the way I want them to be. And so I'll have a physical representation of those cards. Now, when I was speaking with manufacturers, they were all like, well, if you do, it's going to cost. And I'm like, that's fine. Right? I want to make sure that I'm getting the quality product or sort of the type of card that I'm dreaming of, because this is a dream project. So a lot of care and attention is going into this so that when I go to print out 1,000 copies of this project, I know exactly what I should be getting, right? I know exactly the kind of card I should be getting. I know exactly the kind of shuffling experience I should be getting. I know exactly how the foil should look on it. I know exactly how the colors should look and all of that. So early on in the process, I did contact manufacturers for this overseas. Now, because things are sort of wonky with trade here in the United States of late, I don't know exactly what that's going to look like by the time this project is done. That's something I really don't have I don't have to worry about because we're still a long ways away. So many things have changed from 2019 to 2025 in terms of trade, in terms of like the tariffs and all of that. So it is my hope that all of that is rectified and changed by the time we go into print, because otherwise I will have to either find an alternative means of printing or just just prepare myself for the extra tax that I'll have to pay in order to have these printed. So the last time I looked, and it's been a while, so I don't know what it is now. I think the last time I looked, it was at, I want to say 20%, and I could be lying. I think it was at about 20% a tax. So that means that if I were to, let's say I spend $10,000 getting these printed, there's an additional 20% that I would have to pay for them to be released to me and then sent out to you guys. So I don't know what it is. I think it was 20%. It might have been more than that. I'm not even sure. But I know at a certain point it was a whole lot more than that. So I have no idea what it is now. So that is something that I have to sort of navigate. I don't really have, I just don't have to worry about it just yet. Right? I'm still in the process of like, let me go ahead and finish the illustrations and then finish the books and do all that I need to do in order to get it ready for print. And then I can concern myself with it the closer I get to completion, right? So of all the cards, I have 42 completed, right? The card that we're working on now, which is the not 3 of Wands, the 4 of Wands, is card number 43. This is the last of the 4s. So the next set of cards, I still again have not decided in which way to go. So up to this point, I have done them, all the major arcana cards except for 4. There are 4 I still have to complete. And then I've done all of the queens, done all of the knights, I've done all of the pages, I've done all of the 2s, the 3s, and this is the last 4. So from here, I can either go in order and sequence and do the next set of 5 cards, which is the set of 5s. I could do the 6s to skip because of the challenge that I was having is sort of finding, again, new ways to articulate the meanings of the 5s. I have not decided yet how I would like to approach that. I was not feeling inspired by any of it. So I don't know yet if I would like to go that route. I don't know yet if the next set I would like to do will just be all of one suit. So that would be wands, your pentacles, your swords, and your cups. I don't know yet how I want to approach it, but that is something I actually figure out real soon because we get to the point where we're almost done with this card. So this card is serving as a buffer so that I don't have to be in any particular hurry to like get to those, because I don't want to rush into it and then just kind of half-ass some illustrations just to get them done and then move on. So but I am kind of getting down to the wire where I have to figure something out. So that's sort of the way that we've been going with it so far. If I were to go back, I know that when publishers look for decks to publish, they typically want to see, I think, 6 of each. So like 6 major arcanas and 6 minor arcanas to make sure there is some continuity. I think if I were to approach this project again, that might be the way that I would go. Because I didn't have anything planned at the beginning. I just had a vibe that I wanted to achieve, right? I don't know that I would do that the same way again. I'm not really sure because there are caveats, right? There's positive and negative to moving in that way. On the one hand, I'm not necessarily bound by a box, so I can express myself as many ways as I see fit in this particular deck. I'm not bound by any set of colors. I'm not bound by an art style or anything. I do want to make it consistent, but I'm not sort of restricting myself in the type of art that I create for these cards, right? However, there is strength in having a theme. There is strength in kind of sticking to a specific plan. I think I will probably find something in between, something that allows me to create and make happy accidents and sort of surprise myself along the way, but also following a set path, right? In the process of creating this particular project. So I've learned a lot along the way. I have certainly experienced a lot. I've met a lot of you guys. I have drawn a lot of those opportunities to me that I was afraid afraid I would miss out on. So in 2019, again, when I was going for grants and all of that, I was feeling like I had to have all of my ducks in a row. Meanwhile, something in the back of my mind is just telling me to trust the project. Just trust, it's going to be all right, right? That's all I kept hearing. Like, just do it. It's going to be okay. Once I actually did, what I found that things were actually okay. Things started to sort of click into place in ways that surprised me, right? I started to draw people and opportunities and projects to me that I didn't necessarily see coming, right? I think sometimes that is the thing that kind of keeps us from moving forward, because we don't know what's going to happen next. But because we don't know what's going to happen next, we can imagine anything. More often than not, we tend to imagine the most negative scenario just because that's the way that our world is set up. That's the way that our programming is set up and all of that. But just like you can imagine the most negative scenario, sometimes you have to intentionally imagine the most positive thing, the best case scenario that you could possibly think of. And oftentimes you'll surprise when you do that. Oftentimes you'll surprise yourself with how positive things can actually go and how things can actually click into place. And that's exactly what happened. And as soon as I started to sort of get off track in a way that was me intentionally going after something else other than this, focusing on this dream project, things will fall back out of alignment, right? Stuff would sort of fall apart again, just as I was experiencing 2019. So it's been a lot of that happening until I got to the point where it's like, okay, let me set it. And it took me from 2019, 2024 to get to that, right? As soon as I started to intentionally set aside time to work on it, because I knew that life was hectic. I know that I have a lot on my plate. As soon as I got to that point where I was like, okay, Sundays is the day that I'm going to do it. Of course, I'll be talking so much, so I don't get as much done on live, but I do work on it a little bit after the lives. So Sundays is the day for me to do that. As soon as I began to do that, then again, those sort of gateways started to open up. Those opportunities started to come into place. Those, everything that I was afraid would happen started to kind of dissipate, and things began to align. And that's just sort of how I am able to keep going, right? But I just have to stop sort of self-sabotaging and again going for things that don't necessarily align, and kind of staying focused. Because it has taken me so long, I've had days where it's like, I don't know if this is what I should be doing. And again, as soon as I start focusing on it, things kind of click into place. So that is to me reassurance that just keep going, right? This is what you started. This is what you put out that you want to do. You just have to do the work to get it done. And so anytime that I have not, because again, if we go back to 2020, so 2020 to 22, got plenty of cars done. I think it slowed down 22 because I would get to a point where I would be like kind of stuck and not necessarily knowing how to move forward. So I would do different things, or I would have projects and things like that would come up. 23, I had only created one card that was the Page of Swords that whole year, but I was busy with client work and all that. So 24 up to June, I don't think I had created anything. And then June, it was like, okay, sis, all right, Britt, we got to get back to it, right? So June 24 is when I kind of hit the ground running, right? And just to sort of hold myself accountable for the day that I said I was going to start, I was like, okay, Sunday I'm going to do it, right? Sunday I'm going to jump back in these cards. And I was like, but I know me, I'll get to getting sidetracked or start to procrastinate or do something else, or I may not kind of stay focused on it for long, as you get distracted with your phones and kids and cooking and house and all of the things, right? I was like, rather than allow myself the space to be distracted, let me do it live, right? Let me just do it live. That way, if I say I'm going live, regardless to whether it was people watching it or not, regardless to whether I had a huge audience or not, in my mind, if I put it out there that I'm going to do, I don't know who watching, right? I'll say, okay, I put it out there. Let me go ahead and do it, right? Because I look mighty foolish if I say I'm gonna go live and I don't. Now, I didn't have intentions of making this a series. It was just something I did to hold myself accountable. It was also something I was really afraid to do. So it wasn't until I actually did it and I was like, okay, this ain't too bad. I enjoy it. It's very different from sitting and just sort of scripting videos and writing them and sitting in front of the camera and going through the editing process and all of that. I could just sit here and talk to you guys about it. I can sit here and show the process. Of course, it came with some fears of like making mistakes on camera or like tripping over my words or saying the wrong thing or whatever the case is. That kind of was something that I worried a little bit about, especially in the beginning. But the more that I practiced it, the more that I stuck to it, and the more that I've gotten done. We've got quite a lot done since June of last year. Now, I have no idea when this project is going to be finished. I have no idea. So I got a message recently from a young lady who was asking about it. She had just discovered the deck, which was so sweet. I thought that was so encouraging. I was like, okay, come on, Cosmic Gateways Tarot. So she had just discovered the deck, and she was thinking that maybe she had missed out on it because the last update that she had found was from 2022. And I was like, child, we still working on it. You ain't missed nothing yet. We still working on it. So, which is one of the reasons why it prompted me to sort of do this particular video, because we have not really done a deep dive into this project in a while, right? So every now and again I'll sort of mention it and we'll talk about when I started and where I started, but we don't necessarily go into the why of it. So I wanted to sort of revisit that so that we have a newer updated record of it, because if you go through looking for the that information in the live streams, you're going to be looking for a while. Now, I do have a couple of standalone videos on this channel that speak to the why, speak to specifically some of the symbolism up to that point, speak to the deities that show up, speak to the alchemy symbols and my thought process and all of that, all the whys, the when, where, how, all of that. So there are a couple of videos on this channel. So if that's something that you're interested in, you can go back and check those out. There are not very many recent videos, so it's not gonna be hard to find, right? Or you could go and see the playlist, which is called Journey to Completion, and that one will have, once you scroll past all of the live streams, that one will have some of the breakdowns of the cards, the why I started the project, what was my thinking, what are the symbols, what are some of the deities that show up, what are some of the mythological creatures that show up, and all of that. So all of those kinds of things are available. Just being able to have Easter eggs in the cards has been so much fun. Again, this is sort of a self-portrait of sorts, right? Whenever we're consuming art, whether that is television, whether that is movies, whether that is actual art, paintings, posters, t-shirts, all of that, we're always seeing some reflection of the creator, right? Whether that is an intentional reflection or not. For example, I used to read a lot of Stephen King. I've read so much of his work, right? As I sort of went through the process or the journey of reading his work and reading his books, I started to see a pattern. I started to see a lot of abuse show up with his characters. Of course, a lot of alcoholism, a lot of sort of trauma, a lot of effects of those traumas, and all of that. A lot of that showed up within his work. And it just told me a lot about him as a writer, his life, and all of that. And then I later found out that he had struggled with some substance abuse and all of that. So it kind of shows up for the artists. I have seen art that looks like literally looks like the person that created it. I see that a lot. So we're always sort of able to see something of the artist in the art that they create, whether that is through the choices that they make in the art that they create, whether that is the color palettes, whether that is the way that the characters look. You can always tell something from of the artist, whether that, again, that's the writer, that is a filmmaker, that is a showrunner, whatever the case is, we can always see something. So in this case, I just wanted to be intentional about that. So that is intentionally based on my own experiences, and again based on the things that I want to see. That is done intentionally because it makes it a lot easier for me to create. So when I was creating for comic book conventions, the way that I was able to do that was just to create work for the movies that I liked, right? When I grew up, the movies that I liked, the shows that I liked, the characters that I liked, the celebrities and things like that that I personally liked. Prior to getting to that point, I would create work that I thought would sell. That still told a lot about me, right? Still told a lot about my perspective and how I was viewing that particular space. When I was doing that, when I was creating things that I thought were on trend or that I thought would sell really well, to me it just felt icky, right? It didn't feel like something that, unless it was something I actually genuinely enjoyed, if I was just doing something that I didn't necessarily care about, and I was just doing it because I'm at a comic book convention and surely people that read comics would like certain characters, it just felt very icky. It felt very inauthentic, even in that space. So once I sort of made the shift of, okay, well, rather than do that, because that doesn't feel real good as a creative to do that kind of thing, let me figure out what it is that I like, and then I again carve my own lane. So I take the same approach here in the Cosmic Gateways Tarot. Again, it is based on the Rider-Waite-Smith deck, so there is sort of a foundation there. But even within that, just like a tarot reader will find their interpretations based on the question that they're asking, based on the querent or the person who's asking them questions, based on their life experience or based on the experiences of the reader themselves, they'll see different things within the decks that may not even be there initially. It's just what they're interpreting in those images. That's kind of the approach that I'm taking with them, with this particular project. Now again, I create these cards in batches of 4, right? That seems to be what has helped me get quite a lot done over the last couple of years, just to create it in batches as opposed to going one card at a time. When I was doing one card at a time, I was generally working on the major arcana cards. And when I did that, when it was time for me to get to the next card, I would be twiddling my thumbs a little bit because, again, I didn't have a plan or anything like that. Now, behind the camera, off to my left, I do have a checklist, right? So I do know all of the cards that I've done, all of the cards that I've completed and written for, and everything that I have left, right? But being able to sort that out into batches of 4, so I do batches of 4 cards, has helped me tremendously. Now, prior to getting to this particular card, we would work on 2 a week. So I would do one on Wednesdays and then a different one on Sundays, and then that helps speed things along, right? Until I got to the point where I did not have any additional cards available to work on, so we just kind of focused on this particular one, the 4 of Wands. And then again, this one acts as a buffer, right? This one helps buff out, gives me a little bit of time to sort of take my time with the next set of 4s. And again, I have no idea which way I would like to go with it. I don't know yet if I want to skip over the 5s and just move forward with the 6s. I don't know if I want to approach the aces or not, but that is a decision that I will have to make here in the next couple of days, right? So that we can go ahead and prepare for the next set. So you guys will be able to see the development of those cards. Now, typically when I do a lot of research for each one of the cards. I do use my own experiences with some of those. I do study and read each of the cards. So for instance, if I am recreating the strength, now of course this is my strength from the Cosmic Gateways Tarot, but if this were the card that I was basing my next illustration off of, I would really pay attention to what's happening within it, the meaning of the card, even down to the numerology of it, right? This is a number 8 card, so what 8 represents in numerology, I add all of that into sort of my interpretation and my illustrations as I move forward with each card designs. So it is a process. Again, this is one of the largest projects I've ever overtaken. I've never undertaken. This is one of the largest projects I've ever undertaken by myself, right? So there are lots of aspects to it. I show a lot of the illustration, of course. Whenever I would showcase the cards on social media, I would generally go ahead and write the interpretation of it. So if you guys are interested in it, again, my Instagram is probably the best place to see many of the cards, right? So all 42 are not present. I had gotten to a point where I was like, I don't know if I should share each of the 78 cards yet or not. But that is probably the best place to see a good majority of those cards just all in one place. Right now, again, there's 6 years worth of scrolling to do. I did after a while. I want to say about 2021, maybe even 2. I remember taking a class with, I forget her name, but I feel like it's Electra, and I don't recall where her channel is, but her whole business and her whole thing is helping artists sort of maximize their social media. At the time, that was what was working. Right now, social media is different, but at that time, she raised a very valid point in that you want to make sure that your social media has a purpose. And so whatever that purpose is, you want to tailor your post to that. So at the time, prior to that class, whatever I would create, I would post to social media. But I knew that I wanted to promote this deck. I knew I wanted people to discover it. So I did archive quite a lot of art on there. But at a certain point, once you get to the bottom of where I started the tarot, you'll be able to see some of the other art as well. Some of the other things that I have shared over the years. But that is all there. That is probably one of the best places to see just the images of the Cosmic Gateways Tarot, if it is something that you are interested in, again, doing a deep dive in. So we're here for about an hour. It's been about an hour and 13 minutes. I certainly hope that helped for you guys who are curious about it. Again, we haven't really talked a whole lot about the Cosmic Gateways Tarot, just in a condensed, I guess, way, so that we can really explore the project from beginning to end. This is definitely not going to be the last time that we do this, because again, I have about 35 after this card, 35 more cards to create. I am still excited about this project, right? Even 6 years later, I am still very much excited about it. I do have days where I'm more motivated than others. That's just kind of how it goes. So motivation isn't the thing that I rely on to create and complete this project. Discipline is that, right? Discipline is certainly the key when you have these larger projects, because motivation is fickle, right? There are going to be days where you are super inspired and super motivated to create when you do work during that time. But at the same time, motivation does not stick around at all, right? So on those days that I am not motivated to move forward, I still have my discipline, because again, I've set aside time for the Cosmic Gateways Tarot, and that is on Sunday. So I have to be disciplined, and you have to be disciplined as you approach projects and goals and dreams and things like that. The best way I feel like to navigate that is if you know in your heart that you're one of those people who do rely heavily on motivation, and you know that your motivation wanes and you're gonna get lazy after a while. Don't put too much on yourself, right? Put enough on yourself for you to be able to stay disciplined through your journey for whatever it is that you're working on, and then move from there. So again, for me, it's Wednesdays, and then as I move, not Wednesdays, Sundays, and then as I move through Sundays, I started to add Wednesdays to it. So Wednesdays is another day that I hold myself accountable, and I do that publicly, right? Because for me, doing it publicly helps me to stay on course. It helps me to show up. It helps me to, again, hold myself accountable. So do what you have to do in order to do that for yourself. Again, if you know you're one of them types of people where discipline is a struggle for you, just pick one day, right? Pick one day, pick 30 minutes a week, but just stick to that 30 minutes a week, no matter what's going on. And then you can add more days to it. You can add more time to your projects or whatever the case is. If you would like to create your own tarot deck, if you are thinking about creating your own oracle or anything like that, if there's some information that I can help you with in that regard, I am more than happy to do that. I am, I don't know if I could teach you to draw if you're not an artist already, but I can certainly help you to navigate sort of the printing space, what all you need for the particular project. I do remember early on when I was really heavily promoting this in 2020, 2021, I was getting a lot of inquiries from people who were wanting me to create their deck as well. And although I was flattered, I don't know that is something that I would take on from someone else. Maybe in a collaboration. It kind of depends. In terms of it being a commission, I don't think that's something that I would want to be commissioned for. So just kind of be aware of that. But if you are someone who is thinking about doing that, you can make your own. You can do your own art in whatever style, whatever voice that you have. You can also hire an artist to do that. When you're hiring an artist, just know that not all illustrators are graphic designers. Not all graphic designers are illustrators. You will need both in order to complete this project. You will need someone to illustrate your images. You will need a designer to design the way that the cards are laid out. So how the words are placed, what kind of text you want on the words, where you want the placement of your numbers and all of that. You will need that same graphic designer or a different one, because that graphic designer may not be skilled in package design. You need someone to design your packaging. You will need someone to lay out your book. If you're not writing your own book, you'll need to hire someone to write the book for you. So there are so many different aspects that go along with it. And I think one of the things that I was gathering from some of the people who were asking me to create their projects for them, I don't think they were fully aware of what all is involved. So if there is something in that realm or in that aspect that I can help you guys with, if you are approaching a similar project, I am more than happy to do that. Because again, in this particular space, there are so many stories yet to be told, right? In terms of even in Oracle, any of the divination tools, any of the spiritual tools, any of that, whether that's a book, whether that's from books, right? Whether that is from decks and cards, whether that is from oils and, crystals and whatever the case is. I think there's a huge lock on like the crystal category. Plenty of people doing that. If you want to go forward. But in terms of like actual cards, there is a huge spiritual imagery. There is a huge sort of void in representation. Now, what I have seen, and I saw this or someone showed me from my favorite spiritual store. I have seen people sort of lean to AI for that. I would implore you not to. Find someone within your budget if you can. If you can't, then it is what it is. But if you can, find someone who will work with you in creating those images and put them out there. But be sure that you're being very true to whoever you are. Being very true to your own experience, because anytime you are not, especially in spiritual, right, it will read very loud and clear, right? So I remember there was a person that my husband used to listen to, and I remember the first time I heard her, I knew she was lying. Right? I just knew it was something in she did something to my spirit that irritated me so bad. And she wasn't saying anything wrong. She wasn't saying it. She didn't sound like no rude person. She didn't sound overly confident in anything. I just knew she was lying. I was like, I just knew she was being very disingenuous. And fast forward a few years, it came out that she was right. So my intuition in that space was real and was valid and was truthful. So if you're going to get into this particular space, be truthful to yourself, even if it's true in not knowing, even if that's your reality, even if that is something that you want to showcase and share with people, that not knowing, that growing space, that learning as you go, do that, right? Don't pretend to be an expert in something that you're not an expert in. Don't pretend to be knowledgeable about things that you may not be knowledgeable. And it's okay to say that you're learning. It's okay to say that you are growing. It's okay to share that part of the process. It's okay to share the ugly part, the unpolished part, the imperfect part. That's perfectly valid and it's perfectly okay. And I feel like in doing that, you'll connect to the people who will resonate with that, right? Because again, if you're being disingenuous, if you out here lying, if you're out here regurgitating things that you've heard, it's not very difficult to spot, right? It's not very difficult to spot. Now, you'll draw people to you. That lady did. She drew people to her, but I knew, and I wasn't even, and I swear to goodness, I had only listened to a little bit of this woman talk. I had only seen her once. I only saw because my husband was watching. I just kind of peered over. I was like, who is that? And I'm listening to her and I'm looking at her. I was like, oh no, she lying. Right? I just knew it. I knew she was lying. So that comes up. That's going to happen. So just be sure that you're being truthful and honest with yourself, with your experiences, wherever that falls on the spectrum of experiences. Just be truthful, right? Be yourself. Like they used to tell us growing up, just be yourself and everything will be okay. That is tried and true. And that is a very valid and important way to navigate, right? Because otherwise it's going to stick out like a sore thumb, especially within this particular space. So I'm going to wrap it up here. It's been about an hour and 21 minutes. Of course, because I'm running off at the mouth, I didn't do a whole lot, but I will continue to work on this after the live stream. I'm not sure yet. I have not taken advantage of the community tab. I do whenever I cancel the stream, so I'll post something there. So if I make some significant progress that I think I should share, I'll probably show a screenshot on the community tab. On that though, I just discovered that if you would like to share and post on the community tab for B. Lewis Arts as someone who is watching as a viewer, you can do that. So if you have art that you would like to showcase and would like to share with the community here, you are more than welcome to do that. I would love to see it. I hope that you guys enjoyed this live stream. Now again, if you like a little more chill live stream where I actually do get quite a bit of work done, join me on Wednesdays for Bring Your Own Project Live. Again, now this Wednesday we'll be working on the Cosmic Gateways Tarot, but I have again reformatted the second edition version of this book, so I will probably be working on the book cover for it one of these Wednesdays. So Wednesdays is sort of the day that I do whatever I'm working on, right? So lately, of course, it has been the Cosmic Gateways Tarot, but I do leave myself room to work on other art projects if I feel like I can share that part. Sometimes when I'm working with clients, I'm not able to share the process as I'm working with it until after the fact. But if it's something of mine or something that I can share, I just sort of set Wednesdays aside for that, right? But this Wednesday we will be back on the Cosmic Gateways Tarot, and we will be working on the top of this illustration. So if you like a chill live stream, please be sure to join me on Wednesday at 12:45 p.m. Central Standard Time. Do not forget to hit the like button, friends. Right? That is the easiest, freest way that you can support me, especially during this holiday season. Make sure you hit the like button. That pushes this video out to more people who like the same stuff that you like. So if you actually actively engage with that, just hit that thumbs up real quick. It helps me out a whole lot. I do have a goal of reaching 1,000 subscribers, so that is one of the ways that you can help bring more people in. If you have not already subscribed, be sure to hit the subscribe button. I do stream twice a week on Sundays and on Wednesdays. Sundays at 3:30 p.m. Central Standard Time for Paint With Me Live, and Wednesdays at 12:45 p.m. Central Standard Time for Bring Your Own Project. So without further ado, I hope you guys have a happy, creative, and prosperous week. Whether you're watching this live or the replay, I appreciate you guys for being here. Let me know in the comments if you would like to learn more about the Cosmic Gateways Tarot, if you enjoyed this video. Until next time, peace.